Thank you everyone for hopping on. We'll get started here. Today's session is going to be on wrangling data with Tableau Prep. All right, just a reminder, we do these data-driven community events once a month, middle of the month typically. I'll give you the date on the next one here in a minute, but thank you for your continued support. Tell your friends, tell coworkers about this. It's obviously it's totally free. And by the way, Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks for linking back up with us in January. We're gonna have some really good events this year. So today's agenda, we'll go through the meeting format as always very quickly. We'll talk about the upcoming events. We'll have the featured speakers. Myself and Jared will be leading today's session. Presentation is on wrangling data with Tableau Prep. So Jared is going to give a really good overview of Tableau Prep, like when to use it, maybe when not to use it. He'll go through some example flows, and everything will be on Tableau Prep today. All right. And then we'll, of course, wrap with a Q&A panel. Jared, you mentioned that you've got a lot of content today, so we might have a little less time with Q&A today, but that's okay. You've got some really good content to share. So a little less time on Q&A. All right, and just a reminder, today's a virtual webinar. We have changed our meeting format, so we're letting everyone come off mute. So we want to make this more interactive. So if you have questions as Jared's going through the examples, you can come off mute. You can ask a question live, or feel free to use the chat window. If you want, we can try to get to those questions as we go or at the end. We'll have obviously a Q&A at the very end there, and then we'll have the recording that goes out for the session pretty quickly following today's event. And as always, we try to send a survey just to gauge how we're doing with these events. So we'd love your feedback there. All right. Oh, I made a typo in this slide, and I apologize. This says December. This should be February. Our next data-driven community event will be on the 14th of February at noon Central Time, as always. We're going to do a really fun session in February. That's going to be on Tableau tips and tricks. So if you want to learn all different kinds of shortcuts in Tableau, like how to be faster in the product, and just to learn some really cool tips and tricks, that'll be a session you don't want to miss. Jared, I think we'll probably tag team that one. We'll come up with, probably 30 to 40 different tips if I had to guess how many are out there. So that'll be just gaining speed, getting more knowledgeable with the product, how Tableau works, but more in like a tips and tricks setting. So that'll be our next session, and we'll start planning more throughout the year. All right, you guys have heard from me on just about every data-driven community event. As you know, I direct client success and sales for Zeomatrix. I used to work at Tableau, been in the product now going on 10 years actually. So I need to update this slide too. And then we have Jared Shulman, who's our lead consultant at Zeomatrix. And Jared has a wealth of experience in the product and desktop. Today, he's obviously going to be talking about Tableau Prep, and that's a product that Jared you've used for a number of years. And you really enjoy what it can do to prepare and enhance your data. So really excited to hear, what you have to go through today. We're going to talk all today about Tableau Prep, wrangling data, Tableau Prep. These are the topic areas that we'll cover. So Jared's going to probably start with like an overview of kind of when to use Tableau Prep, how to think about using it, and what scenarios that make sense. He's actually going to build out a lengthy prep flow. We'll talk about how to use clean steps and how to union data, how to join it, how to pivot it, how to aggregate it, all different types of things. And then we'll wrap up with what is an output step in Tableau Prep. And I'll make this caveat: if you're looking to use Tableau Prep in your current role, that is available with the Tableau Creator license. So if you have a Tableau Creator license, you can actually download Tableau Prep locally, or you can use it on the web. Now, if you want to schedule those prep flows that you do build, if you wanted to have that be automated, you would need to have Tableau's data management add-on. And we can certainly talk about that if there are any questions about what that looks like for your deployment. But if you want that to be automated, there's that caveat, and that's just having the data management add-on to set that flow on an automated schedule, just like you would an extract. So I want to make that caveat in case anyone has any questions about, the automation aspect of that. But again, if you have the creator seat, you can go out and get prep or use it on the web. It is technically free with that creator product, but if you want to schedule, need data management. These are the topic areas we're going to cover. Jared, I'm going to kick it over to you for a Tableau prep walkthrough, an instructional data-driven event here. I'll stop sharing.
Cool. All right. I'm just going to share this blank canvas for a second while we chat. So, Stuart, you were talking about on that first point when to use Tableau prep. And that's kind of that's a great place to start. Sort of the crux of like, why are we even in this product? What are we doing here? And at a high level, Tableau prep is just, it's a light ETL tool. So if you work somewhere where you have a whole data warehouse or data lake and like a data engineering team who's building out views and tables and kind of massaging that data for you from the source tables to begin with, you might not have as big of a need for prep. There may still be cases where you'll want to use it because there's like a one-off thing that you want to build that doesn't need like a whole standalone view built for it. You don't want to necessarily trouble them to like build a bunch of infrastructure to support it, and you can knock it out quick in prep. But what we see more often is clients who are pulling directly from source tables, like connecting directly to something like Salesforce. Salesforce is a jungle of tables. There's just a ton of stuff in there, and you can build out those data sources in Tableau Desktop. But if you need to do any kind of pivoting on that data, if you want to aggregate it up to a different level of detail, if you really just want to have like one good clean data source, it's probably easier to pull something like that together in prep than to build that in Tableau Desktop, pulling from 5-6 different tables, something like that. So if you find that you do have those needs, if you need to change the structure of your data, especially if you need to add anything to your data, you can't write in any new rows in Tableau Desktop. You can't edit the data from the source tables in Tableau Desktop, but you can in Tableau Prep, and we'll cover some of those use cases. So that's probably the starting point there for why and when would you even use something like Tableau Prep. Does that sound fair?
It does. I'd also say that if you're working with spreadsheets as well, like you talk about database tables, certainly. And if you're working with spreadsheets that need to be cleaned up, they're in a different sort of unique format. Another great tool to use here. But yeah, I think you nailed it, Jared.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and we actually are going to be working with spreadsheets today. This is all just dummy data. What we're going to do is just recreate the samples superstore flow that comes with Tableau Prep. This is the flow that we use for all of our like prep demos when we're working with new clients. And it's handy to see like all the things that prep can do, but what having that whole flow already built out doesn't do is kind of explain why and how we're doing what we're doing in that flow. So the flow itself uses a handful of different input files. We've got orders files from 4 different regions, a spreadsheet of quotas, and a spreadsheet of returns. And this is all just dummy sales data, same as the Superstore data set. So we're going to start by bringing in these 4 different regional files. I'm just going to bring these in from Excel. If you haven't seen the Tableau Prep interface before, you can connect to pretty much anything you can connect to in Tableau Desktop through Tableau Prep. There's like a couple of edge case exceptions that escape me right now, but if you have a question about something that you don't see on this list, shoot us an email and we can do some research into that. But I'm just going to start by bringing in these 4 sheets for the orders from central, east, south, and west. And we're going to want to combine these 4 inputs with a union step because they're all orders, but they're from different regions, and we want to bring that all into a single data source. So to do that, we're going to union them together. If we joined them, we'd be adding columns to the sides. Unioning them is going to add rows within the same columns. And anytime I bring an input step in Tableau Prep, I like to start with a clean step. So we'll pause here, we'll talk clean steps. If we add this, what that's going to do is it's going to let us take a look at our data down here and just get an idea of what this data source looks like, what this input file looks like. So we can see the different values that are available in each of these fields. The dark gray bars give us an idea of the frequency of the distribution of those values. So like standard class is 62% of the rows for ship mode. Second class is 20%, same day is 5. And you can do a little bit of data exploration just by scrolling and clicking around through here. So you have kind of this like, here's our flow canvas, here's our preview of our data, and this will even get down into the individual rows of data to where we can start clicking around and see, like, if we want to just look at furniture for a second, we can do that and start to see, okay, here's all of our furniture. I'm going to take that filter off. We'll get to that later. But this is a really nice way to just kind of preview the data, see what's around. You know, you can just kind of click through and get an idea of what's out there. This is really nice for validating data too. So if you're going through and you want to just double check that the data that you expect to see is there, you can do that in a clean step as well. So I'm just going to add clean steps at the start of each of these. The other really nice thing about clean steps is if we had a bunch of different branches coming off of one of these input steps, like 3 different branches of the flow, and then we got rid of this orders input, all of a sudden we have to connect the new input to like 3 different places. But if we start from a clean step and then we add our 3 different branches, then all of a sudden when we get rid of that input step, we only have to reconnect the new input in one place, and it's going to flow down to each of those branches. So that'll save you some time if you ever have a flow that just has a bunch of different branches. So all of that, and I said we were going to do a union step. So now we can actually get to the union step. There's 2 ways that you can do it. You can either click and add a union step from the end of a clean step, or if you want to save yourself a couple of clicks, you can just click and drag one step onto another, and it'll give you an option to either join it off to the right, or if you drop it below, you can union it. And so we want a union, we're going to drop that there. Now these 2 input steps are going through the clean steps and into the same union. If we want to add another one to that union, we can click and drag this up, and now it gives us a 3rd option to add it on the right, or on the left, excuse me. So we drop that on the left and we add that in. We'll do that for as
Jared,
well.
that's something I wrestled with because I think I wanted to drag and union it again. But the key is that once you've done the first union, you're just adding it instead of, because that would create exactly. You'd create multiple unions. So everyone don't make the same mistake I did. I've wrestled with that for an hour or so. You just want to add it.
The fun thing about prep is that that'll give you the same end result, more or less. It's a little bit cleaner and more efficient to use one union step. At the time that I last ran into this, there was a limit on inputs for a union step, and I think it was 10 inputs. And so if you had 10 different things coming into a union, you would have to union that union to another union. I don't know if they've increased that limit or not, but if you do have 10 inputs going in, you can union the next one to it and just start a new union and a new group of 10. We have one client who has tested the limits of just about everything in prep and has not been able to permanently break it yet. So there's not necessarily an upward bound of how many different things you can union together. So what this union is doing is it's combining all of those four different inputs into a single branch of the flow, a single, set of data. And this union gives us a different type of preview down here where it's telling us from each of these inputs which fields are being combined. And we can see that there's some mismatched fields. So we can see, for example, that product name exists in 3 of the tables and the other one just says product. And so we can come down here and click on product name and it's going to say, hey, I think product matches this. And if we click that plus button, it's just going to group those together. So in a union, ideally, your column names are all the same in each of the pieces that you're inputting to the union. But if they're not, we can do a little bit of that cleanup here as well. So, we can go from discount and add discounts to that. And then the rest of them, I don't see a region coming from this green step. And then we have order date and ship date, but we don't have those dates. We have this year, month, day for each of them. So what that tells me is we've got to come back to this clean step and we've got to build the order date and ship date from the order year, month, day and ship year, month, day. And we've got to add this region as well. And let me just check and see if I look at the regions and I can find that by searching. I see I've got west, south, east, and null. And I know that I've got west, south, east, and central. So I know that my nulls, where I don't have the region, that's my central orders. So I'm going to come back here to clean one, and I'm going to create a calculated field called region and give it the value of central. And once I save that, that new field is going to come through the flow into the union. And now region is no longer a mismatched field. It's now in the union and it's coming through with the rest of the region fields. So we can use kind of this union step for some troubleshooting. We do the same with this order year, month, day and ship year, month, day. And we can just come back here. All of the same calculations that we have in desktop for the most part are available in prep as well. So we can create order date with the make date function. Take our order year, order month, and order day. And now we have an order date. And if we do the same for ship date, that's going to give us a ship date field. So we can come over into the union and see that now the order date and ship date are no longer mismatched as well. We do still have our order year, month, and day and ship year, month, and day. So typically what I would do in this case is come back over to the clean step and I'm just going to remove those fields because we don't need the individual year, month, and day now. So we can just highlight those and remove them. We already have the order date and ship date fields created, so we no longer need the individual date parts. We can remove those. Yep.
I saw something helpful that you did. Like you went to the search bar and typed in ship because you're looking at a lot of data, so it probably helped to get to where you needed to remove those columns, right? You just type in and then it filters down to ship or order as you were searching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's 21 fields here. You could easily have a flow that's got 250 fields, and you don't want to be scrolling left and right just trying to look for that, particularly because it's not like they're in alphabetical order. Kind of makes you wonder if you can sort them alphabetically, but I don't know of that feature if you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got
Cool.
that little search bar can be helpful that way. Let's see. If we go and add a clean step after this union now, we can take a look at the results that we have. And we can just take like a quick scroll through here. One of the things that we'll notice is that in our states, some of them are the full state name and some of them are just the abbreviation. So we can fix that as well. If we come in here and we group the values, then we can scroll down through this list and take AZ and just rename it to Arizona. This is the sort of thing that would take a pretty tedious if-then calculation in Tableau Desktop to say, okay, well, if it's AZ, then give me Arizona, else if it's CA, then California, else CO, Colorado. And we can get around that by just grouping it here in Tableau Prep. And I'm just double clicking on each of those 2-letter abbreviations and updating them to the correct value. If we had something that was misspelled as well, we could group that. Like if we had, here we can make a fun example. If North Dakota and South Dakota became a single state, if they joined forces together, we could take North Dakota and South Dakota and group those two together and just call that Dakota. And so even when it's not just renaming one value, we can take this value of Dakota that didn't exist before and group North Dakota and South Dakota in under it. And I'm going to undo that because we don't necessarily want to do that. And hopefully that didn't undo the rest of my groupings. But regardless, yeah, it looks like this is still giving us what we want. We don't have to keep on going through the rest of those state abbreviations. We can keep on moving forward. We'll notice that sales is coming through as a string, and it's just got these really long numbers. We can change that the same way that we would in Tableau Desktop into a number decimal instead of a string. And that's going to update to give us the decimal numbers instead. And it looks like discount is coming through the same. And this is all just little bits of cleanup that will help make it easier when we get this into Tableau Desktop. It's less that we have to do when we get those in there, when we get the data source into desktop. So now we've got all of our 4 regions joined together, but I remember from our files that we also have a list of returns. And if we want to see the sales, we probably want to take out what was returned and not be counting that towards sales. So I'm going to bring in that file for returns as well. And that's going to drop it right down here in the bottom left. Once your flow gets pretty big, you'll have a tougher time finding where it's bringing new steps or when you copy and paste things. So there's a couple of ways to get around that. You can always collapse this bar to give yourself a little bit more space, or you can zoom out to see more. This like show all button will zoom it in or out to show the entire flow. That can be kind of useful as well. But as a general rule, Tableau Prep is going to put any new steps or inputs down in the very bottom left of your canvas. So we've got this file now. This is our returns. We can pop out a clean step and see what that looks like. I'm going to expand this back up. So we have an order ID, a product ID, the reason for return, and some notes. Let's go ahead and join this in. We have the same 2 options, union and join. This time we want to join these 2. And it's going to automatically join on product ID, but we also want to know which order that product ID was returned from. So I'm just going to grab order ID and order ID for the join. And this screen gives us a lot of information about our join. It's going to default to an inner join between those 2 sources. And we can see down here that it's matching 621 rows from clean 5, which is our orders, and 272 rows from clean 7, which is coming from returns. But we want to include not just the stuff that was returned, we want to include the stuff that was not returned too. So we'll make that a left join. And now that's including the mismatched rows from orders as well, the rows that are in orders but were not returned. And then if we add a clean step after this, what we can do is create a flag for returns. We'll just say returned item. We'll say if is null return reason, then no, else yes. So if there's any return reason, it's going to come across as yes, it was returned. Otherwise, it'll come through as no. So we see there are 621 rows where the items were returned and 15,000 some that they were not returned. And if we only want to report on the final sales that were not returned, we can filter out these returned items. We just right click on it, we can click exclude. That's going to add this little filter icon. It's telling us that we're filtering on returned item. We can always come over here to the changes to see what is that filter doing. It's excluding yes. And now that we have used that, we can get rid of our returned item field because we no longer need that. We also don't really need the returned reason or notes. So we can get rid of those. So the last thing that we'll want to do here is when we join over here on product ID and order ID, that product ID and order ID exist on both sides of the join. And so we want to make sure that we don't have duplicate copies of those fields in our data source. And if we come to the search and we just type in the dash, it's going to give us all the fields with a dash in them, which is subcategory for one, and that we probably want to keep. But it's also this order ID 1 and product ID 1, and those are our duplicate fields created by that join. If you have multiple joins before you do this, you'll end up with order ID 2, 3, 4, 5. So just searching for that dash will kind of highlight these for you. Word of warning that depending on the direction of your join, from which table to which you're joining, you might actually want to keep this one and exclude the other one. But in this case, these are coming through as null, so we know these aren't the ones that we want to keep. And we'll go ahead and remove those. What we're left with now is a data source that includes all of our 4 regions orders without any orders that were later returned. And we can create an output step from here and save this as Superstore sales. Now there's a few different ways that you can output these flows. You can output them as a file on your local machine. So either as a Tableau data extract or an Excel file or CSV. You can output them as a published data source to Tableau Cloud or Tableau Server. And that's where you could also publish this flow and use that data management add-on to schedule it to run regularly. You can also output directly to Salesforce Data Cloud, CRM Analytics, or a database. So something like Redshift, BigQuery, Oracle, Postgres. There's like a dozen different options here where you can publish directly to a database as well. You just want to be careful with that because if you give prep write permissions to that database, you do open up the possibility that someone could overwrite a production table. And you just want to make sure that you have that locked down so that that is not doable. A lot of different ways to output things. I'm just going to leave this as a file output for now. And that gives us our Superstore data source. We also had a file for quotas. And so if we want to report on how those sales did against quota, let's bring that in and take a look at that. So we've got this quotas file. We can bring that in. We're going to see it pop up down in the bottom left. This is our quotas. This is not the best time to explain this, but I'll pop into this here because we're here. When you go to like edit the name of a step, you can name it whatever you want. You can also add in a description. So up to 200 characters, we could say like yearly quotas by region for past 4 years. And that way, if someone else is looking at this flow and they're wondering what the heck all this data is and where it's coming from, you can add in a little note there so that they actually know what that is, add a bit of context. I've found this useful as well for when I have flows that need to be updated with a new file on an annual basis. or if I need to update a filter every year, just to remind myself, like, change the groupings in this step. And then next year, when I come back to this and I've forgotten all about it, I've left a little note from myself in the past to remember what I need to do there. Jumping back in to quotas. So this looks like we have this table at the bottom is actually a really good example of how this looks. It's really just an Excel file that has the region across the first column and the year across the top. And this is not the best way for us to be analyzing this data in Tableau. Tableau prefers a more flat file. So what we'll do here is we're going to pivot these years down into rows from columns. And we can do that with a pivot step. So with a pivot step, you can either pivot columns to rows or rows to columns. In this case, we have columns that we want to turn into rows. So I'm going to highlight these 4 and drag them over here, and it's going to automatically create this new field called pivot 1 names and pivot 1 values. So pivot 1 names is going to be my year, and pivot 1 values is the quota for that year. So double click and rename those. And then if I add another clean step, now I have what year is it, which region, and what's the quota for that year and region. So if I click on like 105,000, it's going to tell me that was the quota for Central in 2016. And if I click on 120, well, that was Central in 2017. 200,000 was the quota for both East and West in 2016 and 2018. And if I wanted to know which, I can always look down here. So 2018 East and 2016 West. So this gives you an idea of what the output of that pivot is. And then if I wanted to bring the sales data over, I could do that and just join it on, the region and the year. But there's a lot of rows over here already. There's 16,000 rows of data. I probably want to roll that up to a higher level of detail to do this per year, per region analysis. So first thing that I want to do is add a clean step to start a new branch. So even though we have this going to the output, we can also branch off in a different direction. And I know that what I'm going to want to join on to this clean 10 is year and region. And in clean 11, I don't think I have a year field. So I'm just going to go ahead and create that. I'm going to call this year, and we're just going to take the year of order date. We'll save that. And the only things that I really want for this are the year, the region, and then whatever I want to compare to the quota or see alongside the quota. So in the aggregate step, we have 2 buckets, the fields that we want to group by and the fields that we want to aggregate. So in this case, we know that we want to look at it by region and by year. Now under year, it's saying that it's going to sum it if I just bring that in. But if I click on sum, I can group by the year instead. It'll do that with all of our numbers, like even row ID, it's trying to sum, but you can always take a number and group by it instead, or you can change the type of aggregation. So for example, if we wanted to bring in sales, we can take the sum of that. And maybe we want the quantity, the profit. We'll take the sum of each of those. And then maybe we want to know by region and year, what was the average discount? So instead of sum of discount, we'll take the average discount, and it's going to compute that by region and year. So now if we create a clean step off of this, we can see that we've got per region, per year, what are the sales, quantity sold, profit, and average discount. And we can actually rename this so that we know that that's average discount and not total. That'll be helpful once we get that into Tableau Desktop as well. If we bring this down here, we can join. And it's going to default to region. That's great, but we also want to know by year. And if you notice, we've got year coming from clean 10 as a string with that ABC and as a number from clean 12. So if we try to join on those, it's going to throw an error at us and say, hey, this is a type mismatch. This is a string and an integer. Those need to match. So what we can do is we can come back over into clean 10 and just change that year from a string to a whole number. And that's going to clean that up. So now in this join, we can see now that we've rolled up the sales data, we have 16 rows coming from clean 12 and 16 rows coming from clean 10. They all match, and our join result is 16 rows. So now we have for each year and each region, what was our quota, and then what was our sales, how many sold, what was the profit, what was the average discount, and we're pretty much ready to go. The last thing that we'll do is, again, we're just going to look for that dash and clean up any of these mismatched, or not mismatched, but duplicate fields. And because it's an inner join, we know that the values between those two fields on each side are going to be the same because it's only going to bring in the ones that match. So it doesn't really matter which one we get rid of. It's just cleaner to get rid of the ones with the -1 on them. And then we can add an output step, and we can call this our annual sales to quota. And we can put that wherever we want. So what we end up with here is a flow with, a handful of different inputs, 2 different outputs that are giving us 2 different levels of detail. And we could run this, every quarter, every month, and update it to get that updated data into the data sources that we publish either locally or up to cloud. That was a lot. I think that was like 20
really good.
minutes of uninterrupted talking. But this is the first time that we built this out this way live.
Yeah.
And,
you have a lot of questions that are coming in that we'll get to.
Oh, perfect.
They're really good. These are really good questions, and I wanted to wait because you were in a good flow. Yeah, you like that? So a couple of things. Yeah, before we jump into questions, I thought of a couple of things, Jared, that I wanted to touch on that I just think will be helpful for anyone that's new. This might be completely obvious to anyone who's used Prep. In no particular order, I love the fact that you can always preview a flow, any stage of it, in Tableau desktop. Do you mind showing how we could do that? Yeah. So what that does, guys. Yeah, go ahead and explain it, Jared. You go.
You're probably about to say the same thing I am. At any step in this process, you can right click on any step and click this preview in Tableau desktop, and that will just pull up literally a Tableau desktop window workbook that has like that. Yeah.
It's a workbook, right? So that can be really helpful. I use that all the time because I'm not great in Tableau prep, and I just want to make sure I'm on track and I just have it's more home base for me to go in a desktop. So I really love that feature. You can preview the whole thing in desktop, before you get it to an output. The other thing, Jared, I think would be helpful to show is if you look at, like, say, clean 5, where you made quite a few changes to clean 5, a variation. And that changes is shown right now on the left, but it did get hidden. And so that is important, I think, for people to know that, like, that window pops out. So if you ever needed to go back and edit a change, or even just identify what changes you made, they get logged right there. And you can obviously go into each one of them. So it notifies you how many changes you made, right? And you did like a discount, you changed sales to decimal, you grouped some states, right? So I think that's really helpful to do, right?
There's my preview.
So you previewed the quota table.
Yeah, just before we did any changes to it.
Yeah.
But so you're talking about the changes there. One of the other things that's handy with the changes is you can, if you click above that change in the list, it'll show you where the state of the data is at that point. So if I click on the group values and I look back at sales and discount, they're strings now. And then if I click on the change sales to number, now it's a number decimal, discount is still coming through as a string. So that can be handy if you're trying to figure out, like, okay, which of these filters is like taking out the data that I expect to see here, and you have a list of 40 changes, you can just click through it and see, okay, where is that coming out of my data? Where am I losing the data that I expect to see?
Right.
We do a ton of validation like that in prep. because you get into
Yeah.
desktop and you go, okay, well, I'm seeing 105 distinct count of ID and I should be getting 107. You find
Uh,
those two that you don't have and you go back in your flow and you could just filter to those two IDs like right here and then click through step by step until they go away. And that's how you know which step is removing those fields.
mm,
So it's a great tool for validation like that too.
that's a really good point. Yeah, the last comment I had, and we'll get to everyone's question here. You brought out Quota, which is a great example for sales. I just want to make the point that a lot of our clients, and probably many of you on the call, like you may at some point have data you're looking at and want to compare that against a budget. So a lot of people will say like we have actual, so like what was revenue, and then what does that compare to some, an arbitrary budget that was created? And a lot of times that's not inherently stored in the system itself. So take like a NetSuite or a QuickBooks, like you have all that revenue, the accounting, but do you track your budget? You might track that in a spreadsheet. And so that's a great example where that can be joined in and that can be related to your base data. You could technically probably do that in Tableau desktop, Jared, but it's just another, I love that use case. We hear it a lot where you have some kind of budget or goal, in this case, sales quota. So that's a really popular type of analysis people are trying to do. That's all I had. We got some really good questions here. So let me start picking off some of these, if that's all right, Jared. We can get into it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay. All right. Let's go with Kim had a question. She asked, could we combine values from multiple fields into one field for grouping in the aggregate step?
Combine values from multiple fields into one field. I'm not sure if I'm gonna address that question correctly. Let me see if I understand. And Kim, if you're still on and you're able to come off of mute and maybe give us some more context,
Yeah,
that might be
helpful.
helpful. Um,
Sorry, can you hear me?
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
Kim.
perfect.
Hi. So I'm struggling to make it relate to the example that you're using here, but for what I would use it for, it's sales data. And we have different people in different sales roles. And I was planning on maybe using a union to join tables so that the share of the revenue that gets attributed to them is kind of split by so basically I would have their names in different cells, and I would want to create a field that aggregates all those different names from the different roles into one field that is basically just sales team member, and then have the aggregate step grab different values to attribute to that sales team member. I don't know if that made it clearer or not. Sorry.
Maybe. That is helpful. So if we've got like a sales lead and maybe like a sales engineer and then a sales team member. So there's like three different people in three different columns, and we want to give them all credit for an amount on a sale. Um, there's a couple different ways to do that. So probably what my first thought would be is we could pivot those three people down. So instead of being in three different columns, we bring them into three different rows. And so we have a row for or a column for team member that lists all three of them. And then there would maybe be a column for team member role that would have which field they came from, whether that was the lead, the sales engineer, the sales team member. And that would allow us to have all of them in the same column. And then if we need to divide the total sales amount by the number of people on that sales team, we could do that in a calculation. Or if we said, hey, they all participated on a $500,000 sale, so they all get $500,000 in credit towards their goals, that works as well. So I think the answer to your question is yes, with a combination of a pivot and a pivot and an aggregate. And yes, it will duplicate those values. So that's the challenge with, if we pivot down those three people and we give them each $500,000 of credit, we want to be careful to not make it look like there was 1.5 million in sales instead of 500,000. The solution for that would probably be more on the Tableau desktop side, using a fixed level of detail calculation on that order ID or that sales ID to take just the 500,000 per sale as opposed to the 500,000 per person assigned to that sale. And we're in the deep end now. So hopefully that makes sense.
Good question, Kim. Yeah. Okay, there are a few more I want to make sure we get to. Okay, Dina asked, can I see a lineage in Flow? Let's say how and where specific columns from the specific data source is used in the flow. Can you see the
Yes,
lineage in that? Yeah.
that's a great question. I love that because it's a feature that we don't talk a ton about. So if I have sales here, or say average discount, because this is one that we've made some changes to. If I click on average discount here in the last step of my flow, it actually grays out this whole quotas branch and the returns branch. And it shows me in this darker highlight all of the steps where that average discount is. And it puts, if you can see it, this little gray box behind the different steps where we've changed that. So if we look at average discount, we can see we renamed it average discount here. We changed the type in this step, and it's existed all the way through these branches. If we click on quota, that's going to gray out everything else. And we're going to see, oh, well, that comes from the quota table. So you can kind of get that sort of lineage if you click on a field. You know, if we come back here and we click on the ship date, we can see that goes all the way through to this output, and then it doesn't go past this aggregate. So we can see all the different places that field is used in the flow.
That's a really good question. That's cool. I didn't know that existed either. I learned quite a few things today. All right, Bridget had a really good question. If you connect to a live data source like Snowflake or Salesforce, if you publish your flow or output file to Tableau Cloud, do you need to schedule a refresh to get up-to-date data, or does it happen automatically?
Yes, you do have to schedule the refresh, and that's where that data management comes in. So the live connection doesn't really have like an impact on this flow, because the flow is going to go back to that data source every time it runs regardless. There's not a way to like keep the flow open so that it's constantly updating live. Flows have to be either run manually or scheduled to get updated data.
Yep. It's got to have data management, Bridget, for that. And if you have questions, we can talk. I can help you get an idea of what that looks like cost-wise and how Tableau sets it up. But it's, data management at a high level will take a prep flow and it will automate the data refreshing is essentially what happens. Bridget also asked Jared that she likes to edit her dashboards in Tableau Desktop, then publish Tableau Cloud. So how do you keep these flows and outputs most up to date? I think, I mean, that one is creating an output that's a published data source that is then scheduled on with data management to refresh on a cadence that's specified. Is that the best way to look at it?
Yeah, you nailed it. So if we put these outputs and set these to be a published data source up to Tableau Cloud, if we had a workbook that was using that published data source, it would always go and grab that published data source. If we bring it down to desktop and edit the workbook and then publish it back up, it's still connected to that same published data source. So it's going to have the latest and greatest as far as when the flow was last run.
So you can, let me clarify too. You could still, Bridget, without data management, you could still publish the output to your Tableau Cloud or server site. It's without data management, you're just going to have to come in the open up prep and hit the publish or hit the publish button, right, Jared? You're still going to have to, there's like that manual element.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
run
you
flow,
just
excuse me.
open.
You'd say run flow.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd either click this play button or this one or this
Mhm.
one. So there's a handful of different
Yeah.
places where you could do that. You could run all
But
from here.
yeah, but data management would take out that step, Bridget. So you'd publish it. And then if you had data management, it would run. Tableau would just effectively create a job to run it.
Okay, so when you say data management, are you referring to when you're in cloud, you can go in and like schedule the like extract refreshes, and then that's just simply, hey, schedule it for once a day, every day. We have daily data that's
Yeah, good question. Similar. Yeah, so Bridget, data management is an add-on that Tableau has that you could pay for. And it's like it's a small proportion of your overall deployment. And we could break that down separately. But when you have the data management add-on, you get what's called Prep Conductor. And Prep Conductor allows you to schedule those flows just like you would in Extract that you're normally doing. Does that make sense?
yeah, it's just so
It's
then
just an add-on.
when you
Yeah.
connect this to like a live database, like a Salesforce, but it's technically not really live, like it's live in this instance, you're working with it.
Yeah, there's no differentiation with prep. When you go to connect to something like Salesforce or Redshift, you don't pick live or extract. It's just going to access that database whenever it runs.
Okay. I say I want to avoid having to go push the play button every day. So I was trying to figure out like, can you use
Data management,
like
then Bridget. Yeah.
it's working great for like I do connect to Salesforce and I just say I just schedule the refresh every day and then we get daily refresh data. I was hoping that would be the same without having to buy the add-on.
Yeah. That's how they roll it out. So if you don't want to if you want to eliminate that step, right, the publishing every day, then data management will do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Good question. All right, a couple more. I know we got 5 minutes. Okay, Eric, great question. Is data management included in advanced management? No, they are separate. So Tableau has advanced management, which is something separate, and they have data management, Eric. Advanced management, a good use case for that is if you needed inherently more cloud storage. Like Tableau Cloud ships with 100 gigabytes. You can get significantly more storage and more advanced monitoring of your Tableau Cloud or server environment with advanced management. On the other hand, data management ships with the Prep Conductor, so scheduling the flows. It ships with the data catalog, so you can get a more searchable catalog of your data assets internally, whether it's on cloud or server. And then also ships with something called virtual connection. So if you ever wanted to set up data policies where people have access to specific tables in your database, and you just want to have more kind of governance over what people can access at the database level, that's another feature that it comes with. So they are separate. They are separate and do different things. They're sold in a similar fashion, though. I'll say that. Good question. Henry asked a good question here, Jared. Can you demonstrate reattaching the file after it's removed from a clean step? I think you mentioned that it was a benefit of adding the clean step.
Yeah. So for
Early
example,
on.
if I wanted to swap out that orders to, which actually I don't remember which one that was now. I guess that was probably East. So if I needed to plug a new file in there, I could edit this data source and pull in, whichever file I want to use. And that will, after it's done loading, it gives me, the tables that I can pull in. And if I pull this out, all I have to do is drag this up to that broken connection, and there's an add the same way that there was when we were doing the unions. So we can just add that to the left side of it, and it's going to plug that in. So if you ever have something like that, that's a really easy way to do it. I'll also use that a lot for validation again. So if I want to see like, okay, just what's my count of order IDs? at any point in the flow. And I can just take like a distinct count on this aggregate and say, all right, there's 5,003 here. And if I come up here and I look at this step, now there's 4,942. So if I'm looking for a place where I'm losing rows of data, you can just move around a step and do some various checks like that. And you just drag it over to the left side and add it back in, and it'll make that connection. Hopefully
cool.
that's helpful.
That is, I definitely never thought to do that. It's helpful for me. Okay, a couple more questions. I know we have a few that we might not be able to get to. Let's see. Okay. Dean had also asked if Prep supports regex, Jared, and Python, and does Prep currently support all the formulas that are available on Tableau Desktop? I think the answer to number 3 is yes. It supports all the formulas, which you talked about.
The vast majority of them, at least.
Vast majority, yeah.
And there's a couple that are just a little bit different. So I'm trying to think, like, they didn't used to support like level of detail calculations, but you can actually do level of detail in the calculation editor now. It does have regex, so you can do extract, replace, match. So it's got those different regex functions. There's very few things that are not available. I think like maybe the make point for like mapping.
Oh yeah.
There's no map in the data source. It's things like that that like you think about it and you go, okay, yeah, it makes sense that you can't do that here.
Yeah, it's virtually everything. The Python integration, Jared, that's referenced through a step.
Yeah,
Tableau,
there's a script step that lets you use rserve or tabpy. And so if you have a tabpy server spun up, you can use that kind of like Tableau Python integration to run some script here. You cannot run those scripts in Tableau Cloud. It's a security risk. They just don't allow it unless that's changed in like the past couple of months. So that's something to be aware of, is if you're going to use R or Python in a Tableau prep flow, you won't be able to schedule that to run on Tableau Cloud.
Cool. Jared, thank you so much. This was fantastic. We're right at 1 o'clock Central. Everyone, thanks so much for joining. I know we didn't get to every question. Please feel free to reach out to us if there are lingering questions. We'll see you next month. Tableau tips and tricks. Again, thanks for being part of this webinar. This will be out. The recorded session will be out promptly as soon as we can.